And welcome to another Market Conversations. It's an incredible Friday. I've got a great show lined up tonight. I want to welcome all of you that have been sitting, waiting for this to pop on. Hey, Bill Gould is in the house. Scorpion, Pete Kelly, nice to have you guys. And I see that we're getting viewers tuning in from Periscope, Facebook, as well as the YouTube channel. Great to have everybody in here tonight. So I got to tell you, one of the things that has been in the back of my mind, I don't articulate it a lot, but it's this concept of currency arbitrage. What do I mean by that? Well, I remember as a young man being told that by this guy, he was kind of a nomad. He moved around the world. And one of the things he talked about was how great it was to have his income. He had set himself up with bonds and was getting a fixed income every year denominated in US dollars. Yet he was traveling all around Mexico, Central America, down into South America. He'd go to some of the Asian island countries where their currency was weaker than the US dollar. And having him earn his income in US dollars and then be able to spend it, his lifestyle, in foreign devalued currencies relative to the US dollar, he felt that he was getting ahead. And so when I came down here to Costa Rica to kind of wait out the storm and have my investments mature, I actually have a firsthand experience with that, where my income or my money is in US dollars. And down here in Costa Rica, the disparity between the US dollar and Costa Rican colony, here's to give you an example. I've been here 3 years. When I first came down here, it was approximately 500 colones for every US dollar. Now, here we are, 2021. I've been here 3 years. It's 605 colones for every US dollar. That has increased my purchasing power, despite the fact that the US has created this monetary policy of expansion through the creation of currency and the expansion of debt. This is an incredible phenomenon, one we're going to explore in detail in tonight's show. But one of the things I wanted to do, hey, Ellie Poole, good to have you in, man. And Lori, nice to have you. So one of the things that I have is I have this incredible young man I met about a week and a half ago as I was doing some internet searches, looking at various property housing investment opportunities here in Costa Rica, wanting to utilize that, what we call currency arbitrage. How much can I get down here for my money versus what can I get back in the States for the same amount of money? It's quite a staggering disparity. We're going to dive into that topic as well as other things as it pertains to construction, what it takes to do a relocation, right? I titled this video, Relocation as an Investment Strategy. Before I get too far into it, though, I really want to bring up this point. This analogy, which is actual fact, I think is going to blow your mind because it blew my mind. I grew up with my grandmother telling me the virtues of bonds and how safe U.S. treasuries could produce income for the rest of your life, right? You could just roll 10-year bonds and live well for the rest of your life. It was like zero risk. That was her particular strategy. And you know what? It worked for my grandmother. Case in point, 2010, I hadn't left the States yet. I hadn't even shut my business down. But I did start looking at fixed income retirement strategies. And what I found was for me to actually receive, now this is net, I'm going to receive $50,000 a year. I had to backwards engineer and figure out how many 10-year bonds I would need at that time to secure a $50,000 a year income safely, right? No risk. It was one million. $1 million worth of 10-year bonds would give me $50,000 a year. And at the end of the 10 years, I would get my $1 million back and I could just roll it over and do it again. Well, 2020, do that exercise. Say that you had done that, right? You'd put your $1 million in and you're getting your $50,000 a year and the decade goes by and you want to roll it over and do it again. Well, to get that same $50,000 a year income, you would now need in 2010, $10 million in US Treasury bonds. Wow. This is a big issue because so much of the baby boomer population, that entire demographic, is not working, or they're very soon to retire. And they're looking to be in fixed income, safe products. And bonds just do not produce yield anymore. Well, welcome to crypto, baby. Crypto produces yield. I know I have 15 assets I own and 14 of them are producing yield every single day. And I hope to secure a risk-free fixed income plan based off of my crypto assets. I don't really want to sell any of them. Some of them I may have to, but for the most part, I want my assets to generate enough yield to live a very comfortable life. Enter in Matt Rosensteele. I want to play you a quick video, guys. This is a condensed version. I did a little editing. This is how I found Matt and reached out to him after watching this video. So here it is. I'm going to put it up on the screen and press play, and we'll take it from there.
Wouldn't it be amazing to move to Costa Rica and live in a property where you can also generate nice rental income for yourself to make a living? Today, I'm here at a property. We're here only 400 meters from the beach in Playa Coil, a property we lovingly know as my Pesos. Across the pool from you can see behind there 2 homes that are each 2 bedroom, 1 bath. The grounds are beautifully sculpted here. This property has been maintained in perfect condition by its original owners since it was built in 2000. Back here we have the building that could eventually be a 1-bedroom apartment with a very easy remodel. And on this side of the property, there's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home with a full garage. And like I said, one of the best aspects of this property is the proximity to the beach. In this direction, back here on the property, a gate leads out to a beach trail where you're less than 400 meters walking away. I have surf break. Let's take a look at the inside of these homes. Let's be clear, these were 3 homes built for couples who wanted to live here. Those 3 couples have maintained the property in great shape since it was built. We're here in the 2-bedroom, 2-bath home. It measures about 1,200 square feet. And you can see from the quality of construction here that this was intended to be very much a property where people lived and enjoyed it themselves rather than just renting it out. Over here, the kitchen is absolutely enormous. All 3 of the homes are livable residences rather than just apartments. And the rental income potential here comes from the fact that you could find people to live here long term easily who might want to rent a home rather than a condo or something smaller in the area. Over here we've got a master bedroom, a full closet behind this wall acts as owner's storage. You'll notice they've got bars on the windows. They've been able to leave this property totally unattended for months at a time and have never had issues. Over here, the master bath. could even have two couples staying in one of these homes comfortably. Next, we'll see the two-bedroom, one-bath homes on the other side of the pool. Each of these shares a common wall, but again, you can see that in space they created a total of about 1,000 square feet. It's really a comfortable residence rather than a hotel room. Bedrooms are on either side of the bathroom here. This is the additional building that could easily be converted into a one-bedroom apartment. They currently got it set up as a gym. Gym equipment is included with the sale. We do have a half bathroom here that's currently the common bathroom for the pool, as well as the property's laundry room here to one side. Importantly, the maintenance costs for this property are extremely low. Currently, the three owners spend $9,000 per year for their property management, pool maintenance, utilities, taxes, their entire operating cost. So that's $800 a month to operate the property, keep it in this excellent condition. The property is listed for $549,000.
Hey, is that something else or what? I loved it. I reached out to Matt. A half an hour conversation about the property turned into an hour and a half conversation about Bitcoin, digital assets, currency arbitrage, investment opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which at the end I said, Matt, I want to have you come on the show. Let's, even though I know you're not into crypto, you don't own any, and it's not your thing, my audience has an investor mindset. So I'm going to put it, before I bring Matt in, I want to ask any of you that are in the stream tonight, do you want to turn that Mariposa property into an NFT and have each residence represent their own token? Who wants to buy one? Comments in the comment field, please. Let me quickly say hello to Crypto Kahona. Mahalo, me brother. I know that I saw Ali Poo. I know DC Precise jumped in. There's a few other names I missed, and it's just going, so I'm going to let it go. Let me bring in Matt. Hey, Matt, good to have you, man. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much for having me, Jerry. I appreciate it. Though I really don't appreciate having to watch one of my sales videos, because that's about as painful as it can get.
Well, you're probably thinking I could do this better or I could do that better. If I had any advice for you on a video production basis, it would be one thing and one thing only. Get a Bluetooth mic that you can pin to your collar. Get Absolutely. A Bluetooth mic and do more drone footage. Drone footage is cool, and good sound, as my audience will tell you, is there. Yeah. Look at Matt. Absolutely. We're already getting it in. Lori Barrowfield wants to buy one of the tokens that we're going to tokenize that property.
That's absolutely something that's been under discussion from, 3 or 4 out of 10 inquiries that I get in Costa Rica, or let's say 3 or 4 out of maybe 15 or 20 inquiries. People are interested in doing this kind of purchase. There's a clear opportunity and a huge market of people who want to definitely create all kinds of tokens and, digitalize Costa Rica real estate. I'm not going to be the one that's able to do it using my skills, but definitely I'm interested in pushing the boundaries and figuring out how it can work, because, this was a country where timeshares and fractional ownership never took off. You can't buy a week in a Costa Rica condo outside of a few exceptions. So, aside from the fact that it's attractive for being able to break down a property, nobody is doing it here. The opportunity will be there for the first person who figures it out. hopefully I could do it, or somebody that is in my sales funnel or whatever, because it's clear that a lot of people would love to be involved in that.
Yeah, I tell you, I would. One of the things, and I think that we'll broaden it out a little bit. We're going to broaden the scope out. We're taking like a 30,000 foot view here. One of the things that I think is at the foundation of any move, right, is it a necessity? Is it something that's important? One of the things that I see very, very clearly is that most people who think they are prepared for retirement truly are not prepared for the financial requirements that retirement in currently and into the future is going to cost. Nobody has done the math with a monetary policy expanding at 20% per year. Nobody's done that math. So I'm curious, how many folks call you and talk to you about this currency arbitrage, the ability to use their fixed US dollar incomes and pay for their life in the Costa Rican colony?
Everybody is looking for that advantage to, come down to a country where the cost of living and everything is just advantageous for their assets and what they have to bring down here. For a long time, really what I was focusing on in conversations with people was the fact that, this isn't a country where a lot of people came with the expectation of, I want to find that miraculous country that we've all heard of, where you get off the plane with $5 and get picked up by a great taxi, get taken out to dinner, a hotel room, everything, because your currency is so infinitely valuable. And that's not necessarily the truth in Costa Rica, or at least I had to disillusion a lot of people of that perception that just because it's Central America, you'll be able to get everything for a ridiculously low price. The fact of the matter is you can get certain things for a ridiculously low price, and especially for people who are looking at long-term plans of 20 to 30 years of housing, healthcare, groceries, activities to keep yourself entertained and sane. When you start looking at it from that perspective, especially versus what that all costs you in either the US, Canada, or Europe, then you really start to see the immense potential that, changing your lifestyle to living in Costa Rica and really having sort of a structural shift in what you imagined as your retirement or your long-term plans can really put you in an entirely different financial picture, because some of those things are extremely cheap if you approach them in the right way.
Well, I'll tell you, this was my very first observation once I got out of the quote unquote tourist lifestyle in San Jose. And I only had to spend a week or two in San Jose. I was getting I got my eye surgery done there. And so, that's where I was, is in San Jose. Mm-hmm. And San Jose for an American is extortion central. Every single thing, every entity is trying to extort you, because the tourists that come are only coming for a week or two. You know what I mean? But once I got out of San Jose, I'm in Perez Zeledón, one of the most beautiful areas of the country, in my opinion. And I settled in. Case in point, the shock to me was a pleasant shock in that all of the things that are very expensive, from like a food type of situation in the United States, organic meats, dairy fresh eggs and milk, and organic vegetables and fruits and all this stuff. Every neighborhood has their own butcher. Every neighborhood has their own, what we call greengrocer. They're these fruit and vegetable stands. All that stuff is dirt cheap, and it's the most healthiest, most fresh, nutritious stuff you can buy. For instance, you want to go to a greengrocer and get lettuce. You're not getting a bag of lettuce or something that was harvested a week ago or 10 days ago. It's actually still in the planter box, and you're cutting it off and they're weighing it right there. You don't get fresher than that. That's cheap as dirt. Now, you want to go to a grocery store and buy anything that is imported from the United States, peanut butter, this, that, and the other thing. Well, of course it's more expensive because of all the import taxation.
Absolutely.
But if you're living off of good, natural, local stuff, it is cheap to eat.
Well, and especially it's the basics. You know, you can here if you're focused on living a budget lifestyle and really monitoring where you spend, you're inspired to eat a lot better because suddenly you're looking at, wow, these staples in the store are extremely cheap. All of this processed stuff is really expensive. You know, I could get a bag of really good chips for about the cost of a load of potatoes or some root veggies plus a bunch of, you know, rice, etc. I mean, the calorie to calorie cost if you're buying a bean in Costa Rica versus, you know, Tostitos cheese dip is unbelievable. And so when you're looking at that and, you know, especially given that you're living here and you've got more time on your hands for cooking, generally speaking, that kind of meld between both economics and the right decisions at the grocery store are part of, you know, that sort of structural shift in your lifestyle. Sure. You know, I think that transportation is a huge one as well. And if you're living...
Well, that's another deal. Let's get into that for just a second. So, but before I do, a quick story. So I've got a friend from the States is here in Perez right now. We went out to breakfast this morning. I'm Mr. Big Crypto Spender, right? I'm the big guy, Mr. Huge Fat Portfolio. So I decide I'm going to I buy breakfast. Now, this is at a nice little restaurant that I know, that, you know, that I love. Farm fresh eggs, sausage, bacon, and coffee for 2 people. What do you think? Oh, Matt, you know. Folks in the audience, what do you think that goes for normally? These are eggs, good sausage, not bacon, ham, and coffee. Probably run you, what, 15, 20 bucks at somewhere at a cheap place in the United States, right? Total cost $6. Total cost $6, breakfast for 2, and it was yummy.
When you take me out for a meal, we're not going for $6 breakfast.
Well, you're right. It's probably going to be you paying because you're going to be the one receiving real estate percentage on the sales. So anyway,
we still have, I don't know how many more tokens to go here. Should we do this like a marathon where we're not going to go to sleep and get off YouTube until we've sold 8 billion tokens or whatever we have to do to get?
We only need to sell 2 more tokens. I'm buying one of them.
Yeah,
I'm already buying one of them. And Lori said she's in, so that's 2. We only need 1 more person to come in for the other duplex. Now, in all fairness, I know it's not written.
So you're talking about an NFT that represents 1 house each.
Yes.
I thought you were going to fractionalize it way further.
No. You want to be no. That would get too messy. Okay. That would get too messy. But here's the thing: when you have a token, right? That's your token. If you want to Airbnb your particular place when you're not there, you'll have the right to do that. There'll be a covenant and conditions section in the smart contract, just like any homeowners association. Of course.
Yeah. No, and where I've lived here for 13 years now and seen almost every good intentioned, optimistic project brought to, the table in my area, sort of slammed through the ringer and ultimately fail in most cases because Costa Rica adds an element of uncertainty, difficulty, bureaucratic complexity that has prevented fractional ownership, for example, or that has made some of these structures more difficult. But in general, what the government here has done very well is create a solid asset for people to invest in that's not near, if you've looked into Mexico or Eastern Asian countries, a lot of them are working exclusively on lease systems for a lot of real estate. A lot of those countries don't have nearly the stability that the government has here. And many of them don't have really this clear-cut pro-foreign investment policy that has set up a system whereby they're saying, please come and invest in our country. We're trying to make this as secure and clear and transparent as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
They've made it legal for foreigners to own property here without having any kind of residency. You can, show up on your first vacation and purchase a property using your passport as your identification. I don't recommend that. Come do that on your second or 25th trip. You can hold fee simple titled property ownership of your piece that is in a national registry that honestly I can log on to with a free account and pull up anybody's title that I know the farm number for, or if I know that person's name. I can track them down and what corporations, et cetera, but it's there specifically to give people the peace of mind that this isn't like an old, super dusty archive where their record is being held. It's right there for lawyers and everybody to see. And finally, it's especially getting into the fee simple titled property that is close to the beach. They've made it a very finite resource by limiting development right on the coastline. They took this very deliberate strategy of preserving jungle along the beach through maritime protection laws. And yeah, we don't have the enormous investment opportunities in 25-foot condo towers, but you can find sort of amazing, jungle line beaches that are pretty special, and something that now Costa Rica can sell very well to foreigners who are interested in bringing, tourists, renters, everybody down to see this special sort of lost world kind of place.
Sure.
So all in all, they position themselves to say to foreigners, please come out, buy this. And, in terms of Central American countries, they're doing as best as they can to give people assurance that they're investing in something solid.
Well, it's because there's been, there was a very long history of Central and South American foreign ownership that title gets disputed. Not what we would call it, administrative regime change, right? The government changes. Maybe the government goes from a democratically voted government to kind of maybe more of a military type of thing. We saw that with Nicaragua. Titles get in dispute. What do? You have no recourse. In Costa Rica, there's no history of that. Matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. They've done a really good job of these fee simple titles. So one of the things, let's get back. I was going to say, let's get back to some of the nuts and bolts stuff here. So for instance, people should know Costa Rica has got a very, I want to almost say sophisticated public transit system. Uber works excellent and very affordable. Taxis, there is both the national and national licensed taxi entities, as well as every neighborhood has private taxi guys that live in the neighborhood. And if you develop a relationship with that person, you just pick up the phone. Next thing you know, you're not asking for prices or any of that kind of stuff. You already know. If he's going to take you to the store and come back and get you in 45 minutes, it's, $3 or whatever it is. So all those kind of things, if you don't need a car, like I don't own a car. I don't need a car. There's good public transportation. Uber works really great. And I've got a small handful of private drivers all connected to WhatsApp, ready to go at any time. I could deploy a mobile force at any time for fractions of what it would cost me if you were thinking of those terms in the States. So, but if you do want a car, right? Let's say a car is important to you via, your own secure transportation. It's not unlike the States. You're going to have yearly inspections that the car has to meet A, B, C, D, and E. So tires, brakes, this, that, and the other thing. There's also the actual registration of it. So you're going to pay an inspection fee. You're going to register it, and you got to insure it. And gasoline is not cheap in Costa Rica because every drop of gasoline is imported from somewhere else. We have no natural reserves of petroleum products in Costa Rica with anybody producing anything. So it's all imported.
Yeah, no, we can touch on Bill's question in just a second. Definitely owning a car is one of the areas in Costa Rica where, yes, the expense isn't some, huge savings compared to your life in the US or Canada. But generally speaking, you drive a heck of a lot less because your lifestyle here, if you own a car, might involve a weekly trip to the store, a weekly trip to your municipal center. I find that before I was frantically driving clients around, I spent way fewer tanks of gas than I would have expected to because really, you're not driving everywhere constantly to have access to something or get out of your house or go to, you've got much more of a lifestyle where people are content in their homes, don't necessarily need to spend so much on moving everywhere.
Which is the full case for Uber or a good taxi.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say out here in Guanacaste, we're on community taxi drivers. I'm not sure if in a tourism hub like Tamarindo, I think there's one Uber driver started now. This is we're talking about only a couple thousand people living permanently in these towns. But it's coming, and in the meantime, like in our town, you've got this system where, yes, there are absolutely unlicensed illegal taxis constantly moving through the town, and you can get on them for $1 and get all the way out to the supermarket. And if you know the guy and he doesn't have many other rides, you say, "Hey, wait for me, and I'll give you a second $1."
Yeah, exactly.
And he's happier to
come in with me. I'll buy you a Pepsi. I've done that 3 times. Come in, I'll buy you a Pepsi.
I want to respond to Bill's question about imminent domain. The risk only would exist if you bought the absolutely wrong property. There are fee simple titled properties where during the purchase process, your lawyer and your surveyor, the person who's checking what's going on with the due diligence, have very clear ways to figure out whether this property carries any possible imminent domain issues, parks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you will read a lot of stories from Costa Rica real estate, /tragedy.com, that people came down and had all kind of, nightmare scenario with bad lawyers or bad sellers or this, that, and the other. Our market has matured a ton to the point where the attorneys involved are no longer really just trying, if you find the right attorneys, they're not these people just pushing things through. And in the only few circumstances where imminent domain might come up, for example, if you buy a property with a road and you can see it's only 6 meters wide and the road is supposed to be 14 meters wide, a really good attorney will easily be able to say, you've got 13 meters, whatever the difference is. The other sort of circumstance you might see are definitely national parks and beachfront. Beachfront land is generally not titled here. And in one of the only cases of Costa Rica, sort of expropriation or, where the government disputed the title, where a guy owned, according to his deed, which had been issued by the Spanish crown, he owned into the ocean. And that became a clear dispute, that if you're an American, you could take to The Hague based on the fact that both Costa Rica and the US are signatories of CAFTA. But, essentially, if you've got a lawyer and you're buying something crazy where the imminent domain might be an issue, then, yeah, they're going to come up with that scenario for you and that liability. And in Costa Rica in general, you see that the government has absolutely, their hands are tied in innumerable ways when it comes to developing projects. So let's say they want to build a new highway right through the farm you bought. You can be guaranteed that between the environmental studies needed, the various ministries involved, your lawsuit to get your fair property value, everything pushed into this socialist sort of, really, bureaucratic government, you're not going to have your property just taken overnight by guys with rifles,
Right. Bill asked a question about, well, what about easement issues? Here's the thing about easements. Easements are either they're going to be part of the upfront contract. It's not like it's the same thing as eminent domain. They just can't come in and say, okay, we're going to force you to this easement.
Correct. And easements are all registered on the full information that you can pull up on the National Registry. The attorney can, the free information you get will say there is an easement on this property. It could be a water easement, right of way. There are view easements where you're not allowed to destroy someone else's, ocean view, on and on and on, but they're clearly labeled. You say to the attorney, okay, a lot of times you can tell, well, it's clearly this right of way and there's no need to investigate further. And other times it might say that there's a complicated set of easements put in by the original the developer or the ministry who granted title, and they can all be pulled then from, basically you have to pay $5 per, legal historic document to see what the easement is exactly and what law it pertains to.
Gotcha. So I got some other stuff. So we know it's super easy you could come, like you said, it's possible to come down your very first trip, plop down a stack of cash with the right real estate agent, Matt from Costa Rica, and put an offer, get it accepted, and own the property. However, here's some other things that come up. What about banking in Costa Rica? How easy is it for a foreigner, a U.S. resident, to come down and establish a banking relationship in Costa Rica, being that they have banks that are nationally owned by the country and then private banks? Want to give us a minute or two on that?
Yeah, from the outside, from somebody who doesn't speak Spanish, and from the perspective of someone who's not willing to hire a lawyer to help them with some simple things, banking can be, frightening here, because when you're working in the U.S. and you go into a bank with your passport or your, couple forms of ID, you can sit down with somebody at platform, open an account, and basically, have access to an enormous array of financial services that the experience in Costa Rica many times is not that easy. But in general, Costa Rica, also trying to welcome foreigners as much as possible, has created, methods that banking is easy and you can do it. Especially, if you're considering investing in the country and choosing between whether to own your property through a corporation or not. The corporation can open up some banking advantages where suddenly, if I apply for a bank account and try and get a credit history, well, one of the things that the Costa Rican banks do differently is that, yes, they assign credit profiles, essentially, especially the national banks. And they'll say, well, give us a cash flow statement in order to justify up to $10,000 per month in and out, et cetera. If you've got a corporation and you go to the bank your first day with, we're expecting $5,000 in and out, you can get that financial profile and an account with a lot more power to it. If you go in as a foreigner with absolutely, just your passport and the required forms, they're going to start you on sort of a junior account in general. But really what they've made it possible to do is, if you've got patience, if you, use your lawyer to generate the 3 documents you're going to need in order to accomplish your trip. You hear the horror stories from foreigners will be, I tried to do this at the bank and it was impossible. I went 6 times. They kept telling me something different, on and on and on and on. Well, what they didn't do was go to your lawyer and say, hey, I need an appointment at a bank that speaks my language, first of all. And second, would you please send me exactly what I need? My certification that the corporation is up to date, giving my board of directors, showing that I'm the person, copies of my passport because their photocopier might be out that day and you have to have it, and coordinate that ahead of time. You can get your cash flow statements. Your lawyer can recommend an accountant who will do what's needed. It will seem more rigorous than what the US demands, and especially because of the touchy nature of international foreign, money transactions.
Money laundering is a real issue. I will tell you, this is what I discovered. Scotiabank, private bank in Costa Rica. It's not one of the nationalized banks. Scotiabank, Jerry's passport, Jerry's 3 years of my bank statements, and a wire transfer for $250,000 sets up residency, my full banking service, red carpet banking service, and everything that Jerry needs to, if Jerry wanted to. And here's the great thing about Costa Rica. You don't need a bank in Costa Rica if you got a US bank. Their ACH, their Visa, debit machines, everything is plugged into everything that you're used to in the States.
Yeah.
It's a parallel system. So you don't need to have but if you wanted to, we just went through that. Lori brought up a really good question. She goes, Matt, how does financing work? I imagine it's different than what we're used to in the US. Talk to me about me, Lori, who was the other one. We're still waiting for one more person to buy a duplex token in Mariposa here. But let's hit 3 of us. We want to finance this property. I'm assuming we've got to go corporation.
Here's the problem.
Or I buy it solo and sell the tokens on my own.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need a third party to provide the financing, because this is 99% a cash market for foreigners purchasing real estate. You're looking at the fact that, the few circumstances where you see it, there are either hard money private lenders who are going to charge an arm and a leg, and
what is an arm and a leg?
8 to 10% minimum.
Okay, let me explain a little crypto thing to you. 8, 9, 10% in crypto world is nothing when our assets are appreciating 200% per year.
That's terrific.
Everything is relative.
Everything is relative. And no, honestly, that's the most refreshing thing I've ever heard, because I have this speech a lot with people, or this conversation. Well, this is a cash market. We might be able to find you either some seller financing or private lending at these sorts of rates. There are exceptions. You do find sellers who are willing to just cut loose and get out of a property at 3%, or 5%. But in general, we just tell people it's a cash market, because from our perspective, where 8 to 10% is, 3 times what they're paying in the US to borrow against their equity in their home.
Sure, that's true.
From our world, people look at that and it's like a mouse running across the floor. Oh my gosh, 8 to 10%. I'm from California and I've got, I would never have to pay that much for my money.
Guess what? You're not in California, and there's not one U.S. bank or lender in the world that will lend you against property in Costa Rica.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely the problem.
They will not do it.
Yeah, we've been. I finally have a couple sources of private lending, but really, it's the far exception to the rule, and I would come down as a cash buyer, because you're in a better position. You're gonna find those opportunities if they're out there, and very much you're gonna have access to a wider variety of properties, because limiting yourself to trying to work out yeah. I like crypto land. This is my first evening kind of wandering around with people.
Before this is all said and done, I will have you signed up on a Coinbase account, and you will have purchased some Bitcoin, and I will show you.
Try to get my
you got two children, right?
Mm-hmm.
How about in the after show? When we stop doing the live, there'll be the after show. I'm going to ask Lori Bearfield to get a link because I want her to come on. We're going to talk to you about hard money in Costa Rica. That's after show. And I'm going to show you how old are your two kids?
3 and 6.
3 and 6. I'm going to show you with $500 each, right, for each kid, that you are going to provide them not only a top-notch private college education, but most likely a revenue stream for the rest of their life.
I love it. Believe me.
Stick around for the after show,
would
Matt.
say that to a guy who's, no. I absolutely love that. I did invite my parents to watch this evening because I knew I'd be among sharks. And
well, I mean, here's the paradigm shift.
I didn't know.
You heard me in the beginning, right?
Absolutely.
The age-old mechanics of using fixed income products, i.e., safe. I mean, the safest, best collateral in the world has always been, for the last 50, 60 years, a U.S. Treasury bond.
Yeah.
Gold standard collateral, safe. You can bet the house on it, right?
Yeah.
Well, yields have gone away because we are in this cycle of debt creation as a way to create what we call economic growth, or what you might term GDP. All right. It's all predicated on debt. Well, when the whole world is up to debt in their eyeballs, if you raise the yield on bonds, which is great for people who want fixed, steady income, what you do is you've jacked up the cost of credit. Well, the whole world,
and all of a sudden, that GDP.
This whole world is in the cycle of borrowing cheap money so that they can pay off the debt they've already taken. And whatever's left, they buy their stock back with. Not creating more goods and services, just creating a larger, what we call equity price per share, right?
Yeah.
Value per share is all derived through this debt cycle. Well, if you know this, right? If you know this and you go, it's absolute economic suicide for the government to increase the yield on their bonds. They can't. Well, what does that tell you? That means
negative interest rates.
It's going to be more. We're going to kick the can down the road. And if you can be in assets that are deflationary to the currency inflation, you get this. So your little 10%, that's a Tuesday.
No.
To the normal people, when they think it's because of how they think.
Yeah.
Once you start understanding money, and you're in an asset that appreciates 200%, and you're going to pay 10% to borrow money, then you borrow as much of it as you can at 10%, and buy as much of the thing that's appreciating at 200% as humanly possible.
You sold my wife too. She messaged me as you were talking and said, "Go for it, so we can do it." The one thing that's not going to work is the after show because it's 7:49, and then no, I was going to say the kids are 3 and 6.
Are you seriously not going to have a couple of minutes after 8?
I will definitely have a couple minutes.
Okay, Lori, get I can do it. I can do it for Lori right now. So, Matt, tell us one of the things we haven't talked about yet. What is one of the things you would consider like a shining star for relocation out of the United States? And it doesn't necessarily have to be Costa Rica. It could be anywhere.
A shining star for relocation anywhere.
Out of the United States.
I'm sorry to say that I've lived in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Guanacaste, Costa Rica, so I'm not authoritative.
Okay.
I would say that within Costa Rica, the people with flexibility to move down and not get fixated on, one of the worst things that hampers investors in this area is that they come with an expectation of this perfect piece of property here. Another fundamental about our market is that there is far less inventory. The country is the size of West Virginia to begin with, but the size of West Virginia where, it was sleeting in San Jose last night, and out here at the coast it was 92 degrees. So there's all these different areas, and people always come to me with, I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 perfect things about a property that have to work for me. And the people that I see who really succeed investing well, eventually turning around for a profit and also having a successful business or investment are the ones that come and say, I want a place where I can go surf sometimes, where I've got access to a market and, very minimum sort of priorities. And they're here with cash, watching and waiting and really taking their time to figure out what that shining star is going to be. And that flexibility can give you access to awesome deals, but it's flexibility. Yeah, come and live here for a year while you're like a shark sitting there and just waiting to see what's available with an open mind that you don't
Right.
have to have 4 bedrooms. You could add on later. You don't have to have a fixer-upper. You might find a new house that looks just on and on. Come down more with goals about what you want to do and your lifestyle, and be ready to spring on an opportunity after a long period of waiting, because they're not just bursting out at everybody. This is not a secret corner of the world, and the reason it isn't is because of that security in the investment, really the stability of the government. They brought so many people into the middle class, compared to other places. This is overall it's a fairly prosperous country, and so you're paying a premium for you guys in the crypto world. That doesn't matter whatsoever where prices are moving in dollar terms, but you're paying a little bit more than you might imagine for that absolutely perfect opportunity. Just be ready to invest when the timing is right.
Well, again, back to if you're looking nominally, right? If everything boils down to the U.S. dollar and the U.S. markets, if that is your quote unquote benchmark, right? Costa Rica is cheaper. But again, here's the plus side. All the same infrastructure stuff we have down here. We've got fiber optic internet. We've got great cellular down here.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cell towers, really strong infrastructure on that level. You've got good police, no military. So the state's funding isn't funding a military, but it funds very good police.
Yeah,
it really does. We've got great police.
Yeah, I did a brief episode talking about Costa Rica as a prosperous country in between Panama and Nicaragua is spending 5 times more on its police security budget every year than Nicaragua allocates to its military. Just because we're talking about, Switzerland. Actually, I can't do a comparison because but it's a very fundamentally strong country, and especially for people coming down from the U.S. and thinking about one of the I think that finite asset that Costa Rica has to offer, close to the beach real estate, coming from California or basically the coastal areas anywhere in the U.S. They're looking at the fact that for $550 anywhere in California, you're probably looking at either a house far, far, far away from the beach in a mega area, or something tiny if you're getting close to the water. And that video was talking about 3 homes, 2-bedroom, really comfortable places that are built out of concrete, that are going to depreciate extremely slowly, that are 450 yards from a beach that some people would say, oh my God, this is better than all of these places I would have
Right.
gone.
No, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
You know,
like, well, I was just going to bring up a point. So Digital Nomad Investor and I go back a ways. He's another crypto YouTuber guy, real bright guy. He is doing the what we would call currency arbitrage in Thailand.
Yeah.
And the point being, it doesn't got to be Costa Rica. It doesn't have to be Thailand. If you do not have a stone cold lock on how you are going to finance your retirement, you should at least investigate currency arbitrage. Talking about living in emerging markets, civilized markets that are maybe just undervalued to the dollar. If you earn in dollars and spend in pesos, you're better off than the guy earning pesos and spending pesos. But we're in a much better situation because most of us are going to derive our income from yield built off the backs of digital assets, which are not, they're depreciative, not inflative, like currency creation. This creates that. So over time, we're going to earn more. And not, so it's like our assets are going to be worth more over time. Yeah, because everything is relative to the dollar. The dollar continues to sink. Our stuff just keeps shooting up. And up and up and up. And then add in network effects and then add in Metcalfe's law and add in these things if you understand how networks grow and become valuable.
Totally. No,
it's phenomenal.
Believe me, I had clients take a look at a very expensive property that I list, and they said, "Look, when Bitcoin gets above 10,000, we'll be buying it." And so I started watching BTC to USD like a hawk,
because
thinking,
we're gonna buy your.
Yeah, it hits 11,000. Hey man, how you been today? You just made like 30% of your money in the last 2-week run. What about this ranch? My kids need their own Bitcoin accounts.
Well, we're going to talk about that in the after show. I'm only going to take 15, 20 minutes of your time.
Yeah, no,
we're about to wrap this up. I want to make sure, I saw Tony. Tony's one of my Patreon members. Tony is a longtime crypto investor and part of a private investment group that I've got going on Patreon. There's a few of the other members that are also in here tonight. And I'm really glad I didn't get to shout out a couple of people. I saw SubCod123 coming in. Of course, I mentioned Digital Nomad Investor. He's wonderful. Channing Smithson, who's going to be on the show next week, is in the chat. Channing does a really wonderful podcast. It really eclectic, though. It's not like centered on one. Channing's kind of a man of the world kind of thing. Very, learned guy, studies, reads. Does all those things I told my son he should do. So I want to welcome all you guys. And I know there's a lot more people watching because I can see the counter that aren't chiming in the chat. Feel free to leave comments in the video. I want everyone to know you can find Matt Rosensteele at Costa Rica Matt on YouTube. There's a link to his YouTube channel in the description of this video. Go check Matt doesn't just do video tours. He does do video tours, but that's only one aspect of Matt's channel. He sits down with contractors and talks about all the kinds of the process. Like if you found a bare piece of property in Costa Rica and you wanted to build on it, what does that process look like? What are you doing? How does it work? Who's involved? He talks about the most important thing. If you see a piece of property you like in Costa Rica, how do you submit an offer? Yeah. It's a little different than the US. Really insightful stuff. He's got hundreds of hours of content on that. And if you're looking for somebody that's going to give you the straight scoop, not just try to hook you with some bullshit about this property's going to generate you this much money, this is a great investment, come on down, we're giving it away at Ted's used auto sales, that kind of thing. Matt is a man of integrity, and I look forward to developing a deeper and richer relationship with Matt as we go further down the road, even though he's in a completely different part of the country than I am. I don't think it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Matt, I'm going to ask for your final thought. Then I'm going to bring in my show producer, Brady, for his final thought, do my final thought. hopefully Lori will get the link to the email, get in the studio, and we'll do our after show. So Matt, young man, oops.
No, I know that a lot of people are, really focused on diversifying your portfolio. I'm a person who, all of my savings is a small home, some fruit trees, the property that I've developed because I feel very strongly that getting something that you own that's going to be yours in perpetuity is a great way to prepare for the structural changes that are coming down the pipeline as we talk about these changes in the values of relative assets. Costa Rica is beautiful because you can garden, you can grow your own animals, you've got a little bit, I'd say a lot more freedom than a lot of places where you're tucked into suburban neighborhoods or urban scenarios in the US, Canada, or Europe. So if you're looking for an improvement in quality of life, I'm more than happy to help in any way I can. Like Jerry said, you can find me on YouTube. Just look for Costa Rica Matt with the hashtag Costa Rica Matt, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can.
Right on. Right on. So I'm going to put you backstage, and we'll see you in just a second. Brady, unmute. Share your thoughts, please.
Unmuting. My thoughts. Well, this whole real estate tokenization gig,
Yeah,
I think
the
is
property NFT.
It's going to be an experience, and NFT is perfect because that's an experience with art that I think is blowing people's mind, and it's just something that, like, Bitcoin makes sense, but they had a decade to think about it. This, I'd say it makes more sense than ICOs, but it's still like a head scratcher of, wait, what? So the tokenized assets in real estate, I think, are going to head towards cash flow properties, and you'll be, buying properties on your TV or on your computer through QR codes with crypto payments because, real-time payments, that's where we're headed. So I think it's going to be an interesting explosion of, I would say, building out infrastructure for places like this that have the ability to support such things, but just need not necessarily the funding, but once the velocity of money picks up in these areas, I can see it just escalating into more and more, because then on the state side, you have more people wanting to leave, ironically enough. So I think we're at the beginning of a huge migration, and the money is going to go where it's treated best.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
Brady,
definitely.
thank you so much, man. I'll see you backstage in just a minute. At the end of the day, folks, this show has always been centered around ways and means to create thought-provoking topics so that at the end of the day, each and every one of us is a better investor tomorrow, producing better outcomes than we did today. The world of digital assets is presenting us with opportunities that are only going to get more robust, safer, right? More trusted, with all of the elements around yield creation. See, one of the mechanisms of yield is supply and demand. If you know anything about the bond market, you know that the more bonds are issued, the more buyers of bonds have to be stimulated to buy bonds. Well, right now, what's holding a lot of people back, and they're forced to buy bonds, it's regulation of their own internal companies' bylaws and guidelines. As digital assets become more and more de-risked on a corporate and institutional level, you'll see more and more of these entities getting into yield-producing assets. The sheer supply and demand model of digital assets that have, fixed supplies in their networks creates something we've never before seen in fixed income products. I think each and every one of us would behoove ourselves to do a deep dive into how are we going to finance our retirement. Some of us may be forced to look outside of our home country. I want to tell you, somebody that's been around and is no longer living in his home country, it's not as scary as you might think. I was filled with, trepidation and fears. And what I'm finding is that there are a lot of places like Costa Rica Matt's channel, my channel, where we'll talk to you about, yes, it can be a little bit of a shock, but it's not the big scary boogeyman that you might thought. The world is really quite modern, despite the vision you might have in your head. Explore your options. Put yourself in a position to win. Hopefully you're doing that with strategic dollar cost averaging into solid, pristine digital assets. These networks are only growing, and they're going to continue this path. Regulation has set the path for us, right? So we've got regulatory clarity from a property standpoint, right? All the other stuff will get worked out. All the bugs will get worked out. We've seen it with every paradigm shift in the past, and there's nothing to say that this is any different. So hang on, folks, enjoy the ride and continue to express yourself in a positive manner. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Those of you that have seen us on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. Until next time, Pura Vida.